Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to the Mayor's Breakout Session of CCL's June Conference. I am Alexis Hermosillo, CCL State Level Carbon Pricing Coordinator and Resident Mayor, and I am your moderator for the session. In today's session, we will be speaking with our distinguished guests and mayors across the country to learn what local climate actions they've taken locally, how that impacts the national climate policy conversation, and how you can work with your own mayor. Before I introduce who we have with us today, I want to go over a few quick housekeeping items. And the first one is we do have a chat box, so please let us know where you are watching or listening from. And the second one is we also have a Q&A box, so if you have any questions, please feel free to insert them there, and you have the opportunity to upvote them to get them to the top of the list. And we will go back to Q&A towards the end of the session. All right, let's get down to business. So with us today, we have Mayor Jim Brainard from Carmel, Indiana.
And Mayor, I think I can hear you, but I'm not really hearing anyone else. Is that me or?
Yes, so we have Mayor Brainard is Carmel's first 7-term mayor, and Mayor Brainard has a long history of engagement with issues pertaining to climate and energy, and is an endorser of the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. So welcome, Mayor Brainard. Thank you so much for being here with us.
It's good to be with you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mayor Sean Spiller of Montclair, New Jersey. Mayor Spiller was first elected to serve his town back in 2012 and is a longtime educator. Hello. Mayor Spiller is a member of numerous committees, and through those committees and normal council action, he has worked to increase smart and green development in his town. Thank you for joining us, Mayor Spiller. And last, but certainly not least, we have former mayor of Tolleson, Arizona, and current Arizona Corporation Commissioner Anna Tovar. And Commissioner Tovar has served in numerous elected positions in the state of Arizona, including being a state senator, as well as dedicating more than a decade to the residents in her city as a council member and mayor. Now, Anna has been taking on energy and climate issues in the state of Arizona as a member of the Corporation Commission. And because of her experience serving at the local level, the state level, Anna certainly brings a unique perspective to the table. It's so great to have you guys with us. And thank you, Anna, for joining our conversation today.
Thank you. It's great to be on.
Thanks. I would like to start off our conversation by asking Mayors Brainard and Spiller, why do you support carbon pricing and the Energy Innovation Act specifically? And if you can further go into any possible things that your city is doing to educate your residents on climate action. Mayor Brainard, I'm going to kick it off to you so we can get Mayor Spiller back in the conversation.
Thanks, Alexis. I see a carbon tax, in essence, as a very logical thing. Think about it this way. We have a finite supply of fossil fuels on this earth, and we're going to run out of them at some point in the future. We don't know when, but at some point they will be gone. And to have a tax that can be used to develop renewable resources, energy resources, only makes sense to me. Instead of having this artificially low price for fossil fuels, take some of that capital that's being generated by the use of those fuels and use it to develop better sources of energy. I think things that we're doing locally, we have taken a very different approach. You know, most of America lives in car suburbs today, and we're taking an approach that mayors can make a huge difference through better city design. Cities that are walkable, pedestrian friendly, bikeable. I always joke, you know, who goes for a romantic walk past the Walmart parking lot? We can design cities that encourage people to use less energy. We can have better codes. In fact, when the U.S. was out of the Paris Climate Agreement, a group of mayors got together that were involved in the United States Conference of Mayors and said, you know, I think we can meet the U.S. goals ourselves through better city design and city policies. I happen to be a Republican here, but tremendous. It's a Republican city, 60-70% Republican most days, but I've yet to meet a Democrat or a Republican who wants their family to drink dirty water or breathe dirty air and doesn't want to leave the earth in a better place than we found it. So I think it's important that we local leaders talk about the climate issues we have, and quite honestly, support this bill. It's a good bill.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it. And thank you for allowing me to join colleagues on here as well and speaking to the issue. I'm from a township of Montclair, about 40,000 residents. We've always prided ourselves on being on the cutting edge in terms of environmental issues, whether that be from energy aggregation on a municipal level, of course, but even amongst residents, we were able to put together a package for green energy as the focus. Not even the savings was the driver there. Talking about setting up charging stations, leading the way in recycling in the state. So we've always been at the forefront of this. And I think this is really an extension of that. We all know the challenges that we see with carbon emissions. And I think when we're looking at solutions, and there's a few different ones out there, of course, but something, that makes sense in terms of putting a price tag on emissions of carbons. And then what I also like, just as much about this, probably most people do, putting those dollars back in the hands of people who need it. Certainly when you talk about low to moderate income individuals who would disproportionately benefit from those dollars going back in their pockets to be able to, spend, help our economy, but while at the same time helping us reduce carbon emissions. It's a win-win for us. We're located right outside New York City, maybe 20-25 minute drive. So, we know the volume of vehicles and other things that are in that area. It's important for us to make sure we're doing our part to try and cut emissions. And I think by putting these dollars on there, we're going to get us to a place where we start to do that. So we're really excited about a lot of the different ways we can interface with helping the environment. This certainly is one of those ones that would take it a step further.
Great, thank you so much. My next question is for Commissioner Tovar. Can you tell us more about how local action goes hand in hand with moving federal action forward? Like, why is individual, local, and federal action important? Anna?
Yes, I feel that is just a great question, because I feel that what spurs just the dynamic of how a city moves forward in regards to policy and also with legislation at the federal level, it all starts at a local level. And we all know that. We want to meet our constituents where they're at and where they're comfortable. And in order to spur that passion of how a city could move forward with different policies, it's really, that grassroots efforts that starts from your constituency and saying, hey, we want a solution to climate change. And this is how you move forward, action at your local level. And then from there, of course, hand in hand, move it forward towards federal legislation. And for me, when I was a mayor, it was making sure that my constituents were engaged. They were passionate about issues, and then just tuning them into, hey, this is what we're doing and trying to push forward at a federal level. So, I would ask for their help in regards to outreaching to, their Congress member, and then also, our two state senators as well too. This is something, I was super passionate about in making sure that, I really wanted to involve our constituency from the get-go in this, and how very much it's important to have them, starting with us at a local level, but continuing on also at a federal level. So definitely goes hand in hand, and you can't have one without the other if we want to push, federal legislation all the way, in making sure that as a city, as a part of our state, and of course part of our country, we're doing everything possible to try and bring forward very progressive solutions that meet everyday Arizonans and everyday, citizens across the United States.
Great, thank you so much. Mayors Brainard and Spiller, is there anything that you'd like to add, any advice that you'd give about how local action goes hand in hand with moving federal action forward?
I think that our senators and representatives in the House pay attention to what local leaders are telling them, because they know that they're spending most of their time within the DC Beltway, but the mayors run into their constituents in the grocery store and the barber shop and, on the walking trail, wherever it might be, on a daily basis, and have a very good sense of the pulse of the community, what people are concerned about. So I think that most federal representatives do listen to mayors, and that it's important that we reach out and tell them what our constituents are thinking, as well as taking local action. I think we don't talk enough about, we talk a lot about federal policy, and that's a good thing. It's great to have a federal partner, again, in this endeavor to clean up our environment. But we can do an awful lot at the local level. We can probably do more in many ways at the local level if we focus on it. Work together with local interest groups that are concerned about the environment, set good city policy, better building standards, better city design, photovoltaic displays, help homeowners get solar panels and other renewable energy sources for their homes. There's so much to be done that will make a huge difference locally, and setting some goals, and then having staff work towards those goals about reducing local energy consumption. You know, most great movements in history have not been top-down movements, but bottom-up movements. And this is a movement of change that needs to come, and quite honestly is coming, from residents who care about the environment. And that's what will make the biggest difference.
Well, certainly I will agree with my colleague. I think he's totally right. And I'll just say on a couple fronts. He talks about the grassroots and bottom up, and that's so true. I'll speak for myself in terms of, look, I became educated around this bill and the benefits because constituents reached out to me, right? And they said, "Hey, Mayor, would you mind signing on for this? Would you mind contacting our congressional delegation on this?" And we're represented in our township by two Congress people. But would you mind reaching out and talking to them about this? And so talk about that grassroots. It started because residents reached out to me on this, and then it was writing a letter as mayor, to our Congress people, asking them to support it, having conversations with them. When I wrote the note and sending them a mask or doing something, I'll say, have a conversation about this and keep touching base on it. So I think that's how you do it. And then I think, as the mayor noted, they're aware that we're talking to the people, if you will, every day, and have that sense of what people are asking about and fighting for. And I think that goes a long way when we're able to convey that, certainly as mayors, and then groups of mayors, and then of course building when you've got community organizations standing behind you, with you, also pushing it. I think it all makes a really big difference. But I also want to highlight, another piece that the mayor noted, and that a lot of things can happen locally. I think everyone will tell I'm pretty proud of our energy aggregation program that we recently put through, because it took us a few years to get it going, but it's a good example, I think, of exactly what he's noting, when we were able to pool together with a number of surrounding towns. And our goal at the start, we said, look, it's about green energy. We know the state, New Jersey, pretty aggressively setting some goals for green energy, but we said we want to well exceed that, and we want to do it now. And we teamed up to say, if we can get some savings here, let's buy in bulk. Let's buy in bulk of green energy. And then let's have an opt-out energy aggregation program for all residents, not just the municipal electricity, not just schools, and we were able to initiate that with great effect. We've had it now in effect for a few years. Residents did, by the way, save a little bit of money, and that's a bonus, but it was just really green energy. And I think people were really proud of that. And we even have residents in that program opting up to 100% green energy and paying a little bit of a premium to do that. We even offer that option. So I think the mayor's spot on in terms of, there are many things that can be done locally that are going to have a really big environmental impact. And especially that grassroots pressure, that grassroots organizing, that grassroots coalition building and partnering can really help to get a lot accomplished.
Well, and to follow, Mayor Spiller's exactly right as well. And that's a great program that you told us about, the irrigation program. But think about it, there's 1,300 cities in the United States of over 50,000 people. And what we really have are 1,300 individual laboratories, all trying different things. We never know where that great new best idea that may be adaptable by many other cities is going to come from. So in essence, we have all these civic laboratories. How do we fix this problem? And that creates a lot of energy that can be brought to the table too.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. Being a mayor myself, I want to emphasize how much work and how many things that we can accomplish at the local level. And I want to get back into the outreach and the collaboration between residents and their mayor. And I want to propose this question to all of you: is what advice do you have for CCL volunteers who want to work with their mayors? Mayor Spiller?
Well, thank you for that, Mayor. I think, as you well know, I think a lot of it is, really having that ask ready to go. I think first is education. It's reaching out, making sure mayors are educated on whatever it is. As I know everyone on this panel will agree, there's just so much that you're constantly dealing with, that when people come in and are very, knowledgeable on the issue, ready to present you with facts, ready to present you with areas you can get more information on your own, it's very helpful in terms of being able to, come up to speed on whatever the issue is. So starting from that place, I think, is very helpful. And I'd say that with this issue as well. So in any town, the mayor in your town may or may not be as knowledgeable in this area. Go in, have that conversation, present the information. I've found people are, constantly doing that. It's very helpful. I think the next steps would be have a specific ask, right? And the ask in this case that came to me was, would you sign on in support? Check, happy to. And the next piece was, would you be willing to reach out to our Congress people and ask them for their support? And the answer there was yes. And I believe the old version of the bill, one of our Congress people was on, one wasn't. So it was reaching out to the one that wasn't and asking her to sign on and be supportive, and, helping have a conversation around what do we think should be in that letter? What are the pieces we should highlight? That was helpful as well. So I think making it as easy as possible to make sure we're, taking that next step of the ask that you have is a big piece. And then next, something like this, it's the follow-up. Hey, listen, love to have you on talking about this, or let's spread the word, or what's the next piece of the build, if you will, from that original ask once you've gotten that accomplished. And I think through that somewhat methodical process, there's an opportunity to grow that base of the organizing, and to keep that pressure on, and as the mayor noted before, to push up, to our Congress people, and of course get this thing signed. So I think that's the plan, the model I would use, and I would encourage everyone to, some version of that I think is pretty effective. But whatever works for you, if you're out there doing something and advocating, that's a great start.
Great, that's very spot on, Mayor. Commissioner Tovar, you served the city of Tolleson for many, many years. Any advice that you would give for working with mayors?
Yes, I would say definitely, and I agree with what Mayor Spiller had said. Just great points there. I would say start early in your conversation and outreach to mayors as well too. I know we're juggling quite a bit of things as mayors, but I think starting that conversation early, doing your homework about your particular mayor in your community and seeing where they're at, seeing if they have any policies that relate to this as your tie-in as well too. And I would also say be persistent. When you're making the ask, and when you're asking for a meet and greet, just be persistent on it as well too. I think that will pay off. But as starting that relationship and building upon that relationship as well too is key, I would say. And especially when a mayor feels like, wow, there's all these groups within my community that are very passionate about this issue. Why don't we sit down and have, just a coffee talk with everyone, with all these groups as well too. But I feel that, definitely starting early, making the ask, being specific about the ask, and following up after that meeting, again, with just facts, details, and encouraging, a commitment from, speaking with your Congress member. Mayors and members of Congress, they meet quite frequently, whether it's on the phone, whether it's via Zoom, but they're always trying to keep in touch, to give them, what is happening in our community. So I think that's another possibility as well too, in making that ask and asking for a member of Congress to be part of a meeting in the future. But I think you can't go wrong when you start early and you remain persistent.
Mayor Brainard.
One, get involved in the campaigns, get the candidates. During a campaign, candidates it's pretty easy to get them to promise about anything, but tie them down on these issues, and then follow up. And secondly, a strategy that's worked really well for us, we've gotten a lot of our high school students involved. It's really hard for a city council member to tell a high school student no. Getting these young people who are going to have to live with the decisions that are made now for the rest of their lifetime, I think is a very effective strategy with the legislative body. Get those kids involved and active with the city council members and with federal representatives as well.
Great, thank you so much. So speaking about outreach, we do have some questions in our Q&A, and I see the most voted question comes from Mike Arney, who's a group leader in CCL, and the question is, or the statement is, my mayor says we should get support for the Energy Innovation Act through the City Council rather than him personally endorsing it. We're trying to do that, but I'm curious what the mayors make of that.
Well, I think both. You want leaders. The mayor is the executive of the city in most cases. Have that mayor step up and lead the city council. More the better. It shouldn't be one or the other. It should be both.
Mayor Spiller, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree fully. The more the better, as was noted. I think that, I think looking at maybe one can help pull the other, though, I will note. So if there's some resistance in one area versus another, or you've got a supportive council member or a supportive mayor versus council, go to where you think you might be able to be more effective in terms of getting someone to do it, start the process, get someone on. And that also has the tendency to say, oh, now you can go to that other, whatever the second one is, whether it be mayor, whether it be council, and say, hey, by the way, your colleagues are on board here, or the mayor's on board here. Would you be willing to also support this, or would you write the letter now that they've passed the resolution? Whatever it might be, I think that can help leverage one to the other as well. So I agree with the mayor, though. The more the better, and work both avenues, work all of it to try and get that pressure. We all know really it's getting that pressure to get on our Congress people right now to get this done. And I think the more avenues that it's coming from there, the better.
Great. Our next question involves a little bit of problem-solving skills. So the next question comes from Rebecca St. John, and the question, or the statement of the question is, we have presented to our mayor and city council, and though they nicely listened, did not want to support a federal bill. The city prides itself on being a green city, a tree city. What should our next step be? And I'm going to go to Commissioner Tovar because I know that she has an extensive background in working with being an elected official in multiple positions herself. Commissioner Tovar, do you have any thoughts about what should the next step be if the city council won't support a federal bill?
Yes, well, definitely, I would say, maybe an opportunity to write an op-ed to the local paper as well to gather that support of, the key stakeholders that are wanting to come to a council meeting and, have them weigh in on this issue, sign in, where they're able to speak for the 2 minutes at the beginning of the meeting and saying how critically important it is for them to weigh in on this issue. Shine the spotlight of why it is important for them to have the buy-in as well too, and work on a collaborative approach. I would say at some point, you would need to reach out individually to the mayor and to the council back again after, you've done these steps to encourage them to take a vote on it. I would present them also with facts of what your neighboring cities are doing as well too. If they're supporting it federally as well too, it'd be great for us to be a part of the region and collaborate as well too, and do our part as a city to, to have that, and to have that support, from your city as well too. But I think there's a few things that you can do, but I would say, just because they told you no once, don't take that, as a be all end all. Just make sure you follow up and continue on it, because I'm pretty sure once you have some even media attention as well too, they'll be more willing to listen and just say, hey, we just want to be a partner with this. This is something that as a community that we are wanting. I think ultimately you'll be able to work it, but it'll take some finessing as well.
Great response.
And I'll just add to that, if I might. I think, tying a little bit of what the commissioner noted to what the mayor was saying before as well. I think know your end game goal, right? The goal is to get the Congress people to move forward on this and to get this passed. Maybe the press is all of those things. It's those op-eds, it's the meetings. But know an out potentially. Maybe you say, if they're saying the hard line, we focus on local issues, right? We hear that before. We focus on local issues. This isn't a local piece. We're not going to get involved. Maybe have your ask pivot and you say, okay, well, we appreciate that. We know that you're strong advocates for the city. It's a green city. We'd like then for you to help do a meeting with our congressperson or congresspeople and have you there, and all of us approach him or her and have the conversation as to why this is so important and work to get their commitment on supporting this bill. Maybe that's the ask. And you say, well, I know you didn't want to pass a resolution, but would you be willing to sit down for that meeting and walk in with us as partners now that you're educated on this issue, and say, while you didn't pass a resolution, you're here sitting with us today because you support them taking action around this. Maybe give them a few options and angles to get to where you need to be.
Great. Thank you so
More
much.
pressure on them too, perhaps. Find one member. I don't know how large that legislative body is, but 5, 7, 9 people, you probably find one that might be willing to sponsor that resolution, get it on the agenda, and then force them to vote yes or no on it. Do they support it or don't they? And I think, again, getting some student groups involved, maybe even a political action committee that makes it very clear they're going to support candidates in the next election that care about the environment. Just the fact that group forms will get some attention for those incumbents.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to go to one last question in our Q&A before we do closing remarks, because we are on a time schedule. And the last question is, does your city have a climate action plan? Tell us how you did that. And if you do not have one, what is your plan to build a climate action plan? Mayor Brainard?
Yes, we do have a climate action plan. We just completed it with the help of the Indiana University Resiliency Institute, which until recently was headed by Janet McCabe, who has gone back to be Deputy Administrator of the EPA. And I would encourage you, especially there's budget issues in a city, everybody's short of money, there's never enough money, to reach out to your local universities to see if they can help you prepare a climate action plan, and then involve all the various department heads of the city as well as public interest groups in the city, put one together and work towards getting the legislative body, the city council, to adopt that plan.
Great. Mayor Spiller?
Yeah, so we're part of Sustainable Jersey and a few other pieces that have different components around climate and I guess develop what we call a climate action plan. But it's looking at all the different components, how we can tie that together. We work with, of course, our schools, which are also a big piece of the conversation in terms of government. But to work on what we can, and it fits into our master plan generally, overall, in terms of what we have set up. But I think we're always trying to do more with the environment. I think, every time you take a step, there's about 4 more you can take. So I think it's important to constantly be revisiting, reviewing and looking at the goals that you set, because the goals that you set, maybe you can exceed some of those, right? I know a lot of them are pretty modest when you look at what when it's pushed down to you. So kind of a little bit of what the mayor noted before, we can be leaders in the way of kind of being more aggressive on that. So I know that we try to be. Our environmental commission in town does a wonderful job as the liaison to that. I'm very proud of the work that they do. And they're always helping us to, kind of move forward on the goals, set forward in some of the different programs, whether it's Sustainable Jersey or otherwise, to make sure we're meeting the environmental goals that we set.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to chime in really quick because I was notified that we have less than 30 seconds to go and we will be cut off. And so I just wanted to briefly thank you so much for joining us today, mayors and audience members. For all of you who are watching or listening, if you wish to find out more information or get involved, please visit our website at citizensclimatelobby.org. Again, I hope I'm very grateful for everyone who listened in, and I hope that you received helpful information from our mayors in this session. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Citizens Climate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration. And together, We are creating the political will for a livable world.